The XRP community is facing a serious reality check right now, and most people are not ready to hear it. There is a growing narrative being pushed again and again that XRP already has full clarity in the United States, that everything is solved, and that nothing else is needed. But what if that belief is actually slowing down real progress? What if the biggest risk to XRP right now is not regulation, not the market, but misinformation inside the community itself? Welcome to XRP Gold Silver Scope, where we break things down with facts, not hype. Let's start with the core issue. Many voices are confidently saying that XRP does not need any new laws like the Clarity Act because it already won in court. Yes, a major legal decision confirmed that XRP itself is not a security in many contexts. That is a big win, no doubt. But here is where the misunderstanding begins. Legal clarity on paper does not automatically translate into real-world adoption, especially when we are talking about banks and financial institutions handling billions of dollars. Think about it logically. If XRP truly had everything it needed right now, we would already be seeing massive adoption in the United States. Banks would be rushing in. Payment networks would be integrating it at scale. Financial institutions would be competing to use this technology because of its speed, cost efficiency, and ability to remove outdated systems. But that is not happening, not at the level people expected. So the question becomes simple. Why? To answer that, we need to separate two things that many people confuse. First, XRP having some level of legal clarity. Second, institutions having complete regulatory certainty to actually use it. These are not the same thing. And this difference is exactly where the problem lies. Financial institutions do not operate on assumptions or partial clarity. They do not move based on opinions or social media confidence. They move based on strict rules, written guidelines, and zero-risk environments. When dealing with other people's money, there is no room for guesswork. Everything must be clearly defined, approved, and compliant from every angle. Even if XRP is considered not a security in certain cases, banks still need much more than that. They need to understand how XRP fits into accounting rules, how it is treated on balance sheets, what the capital requirements are, and how regulators will respond to its use in real-time settlement systems. Without that full picture, they simply will not move. And that leads us to a critical insight. The absence of institutional adoption in the United States is not random. It is not because XRP lacks utility. It is not because the technology is weak. It is because institutions are waiting for something bigger, something stronger, something written in black and white that removes all uncertainty. There has even been discussion about a timeline for broader regulatory progress, with expectations tied to legislative movement. The idea is simple. If a comprehensive framework does not move forward within a certain window, progress could slow down significantly. That is why this moment matters so much. Another important point that often gets ignored is this. Just because there is no rule blocking banks from using XRP does not mean they will use it. In theory, they can. In practice, they are choosing not to. And that decision is based entirely on risk management. Banks do not wait until something is probably okay. They wait until it is unquestionably safe from a regulatory standpoint. They want clear instructions, not interpretations. They want certainty, not assumptions. So when people say XRP does not need further clarity, they are missing the bigger picture. XRP might have made progress legally, but the institutions that need to use it have not reached the level of certainty required to take action. And until that gap is closed, adoption will remain limited, especially in the United States. Now let's move beyond opinions and look at actual data, real announcements, and what has truly happened since the legal situation around XRP improved. Because this is where the reality becomes very clear, and it may not match what many people expected. After the legal milestone in August 2025, the expectation across the XRP community was simple. This was supposed to be the turning point. Many believed that once the legal uncertainty was reduced, financial institutions in the United States would begin adopting XRP at a much faster pace. We were expecting major partnerships, large-scale integrations, and a visible shift in how banks operate. But when you carefully go through all the announcements over the past year and a half, a very different picture appears. A large portion of the activity connected to Ripple and its ecosystem is happening outside the United States. You see developments in regions like Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and Australia. There are partnerships, pilot programs, and infrastructure developments happening globally. This shows that the technology is valuable and in demand. That is not the issue. The issue is location. Specifically, the lack of strong institutional adoption inside the United States. Even when you look at some of the biggest announcements, many of them are not directly tied to XRP usage in core banking infrastructure. Some focus on custody services, some involve stablecoins, and others are still in early testing phases like proof of concepts. These are important steps, but they are not the large-scale, real-world financial integration that many people were expecting after legal clarity improved. There are also cases where companies based in the United States are involved, but the actual use case does not revolve around XRP itself. Instead, it may focus on other digital assets or related services. Again, this shows progress, but not the kind of direct XRP adoption that would drive massive utility. Now let's take it a step further and look at the blockchain metrics themselves, because data does not lie. If institutions were truly adopting XRP at scale, we would expect to see a massive increase in network activity. That would include a sharp rise in transaction volume, a surge in the number of active accounts, and a clear upward trend in daily usage. But when you analyze the data after August 2025, the growth is not explosive. Yes, there are spikes here and there. Yes, there is some increase in activity, but it is not the kind of consistent, large-scale growth that would indicate heavy institutional usage. For example, the number of payments happening across the network has not skyrocketed. Payment volumes show occasional spikes, but not sustained growth that signals major banks moving large amounts of money regularly. The number of active users has increased, but much of that can be linked to investor interest rather than institutional adoption. Even more telling is the behavior of transaction fees, or what is often referred to as burn activity. If large institutions were actively using the network at scale, this metric would show a noticeable increase. Instead, it remains relatively low compared to what would be expected in a high-usage environment. All of this points to one conclusion. The expected wave of institutional adoption in the United States has not happened yet. And this is not because XRP lacks capability. The technology is fast, efficient, and designed for exactly this purpose. The benefits are clear. It can reduce costs, speed up transactions, and eliminate outdated systems that banks still rely on today. So again, we come back to the same question. Why are U.S. institutions not moving? The answer is becoming more obvious. It is not about whether XRP can be used. It is about whether institutions feel safe enough to use it at scale. There is a major difference between experimenting with a technology and fully integrating it into core financial systems. Experiments can happen with limited risk. Full integration requires complete certainty, especially when regulatory bodies are involved. Another key factor is internal approval processes. Even if a bank is interested in using XRP, it cannot move forward unless every department is aligned. Legal teams, compliance officers, risk managers, and executives all need to sign off. And they will not do that unless the regulatory environment is crystal clear. This is why partial clarity is not enough. This is why a court decision, while important, does not solve everything. Institutions need a full framework that clearly defines how digital assets like XRP can be used across different scenarios. Without that, hesitation continues. And that hesitation is exactly what we are seeing right now in the United States. Now, let's bring everything together and talk about what really matters going forward, because this is where the future of XRP will be decided. At this point, the situation is very clear. XRP has made significant legal progress, the technology is strong, and global adoption is slowly building. But inside the United States, the level of institutional usage that many expected is still missing. And the biggest reason behind that is not fear of the technology, it is fear of uncertainty. Banks are not scared of XRP. They are not ignoring it because it does not work. They are waiting because the rules are not fully defined for them. When you are managing billions or even trillions of dollars, you cannot take risks based on assumptions. You need absolute clarity, written rules, and full regulatory alignment before making any major move. This is exactly why broader legislation becomes so important. A comprehensive framework would not just clarify XRP itself, it would give institutions a complete roadmap on how to safely use digital assets in real financial systems. It would answer questions about compliance, accounting, risk exposure, and operational structure. And once that happens, everything can change very quickly. History has shown that when uncertainty is removed, institutions move fast. They do not move slowly once the green light is given. They scale quickly, they invest heavily, and they integrate new systems at a level that retail investors often underestimate. That is why many believe that once full clarity arrives, we could see a completely different phase of XRP adoption. Not small experiments, not limited pilots, but real usage at scale. Cross-border payments, liquidity management, settlement systems, all powered by technology that is already built and ready. But until that moment comes, patience is required. Because right now, the data is telling us that we are not there yet. Another important point to understand is the role of traditional finance. Existing financial systems are deeply rooted and extremely powerful. Any new technology that challenges how money moves will naturally face resistance. Not always direct resistance, but slow adoption, cautious testing, and delayed decision-making. Some institutions may even prefer to wait as long as possible before making a shift, especially if the current system still benefits them. Change in finance does not happen overnight. It happens when the incentives and the regulations align at the same time. So what we are seeing right now is not failure. It is a transition phase. The groundwork is being built globally. The legal pieces are slowly coming together. The interest is there. But the final trigger, the moment that pushes everything forward in the United States, has not fully arrived yet. And that is why it is so important to stay realistic. Hype can create excitement, but facts create understanding. And right now, the facts clearly show that institutional adoption in the U.S. is waiting for stronger regulatory direction. Once that direction is in place, the entire landscape could shift very quickly. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want more real, fact-based analysis like this, make sure to subscribe to XRP Gold Silver Scope, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a smarter and more informed XRP community together.